Hey guys, welcome back to Release the Craftin. Priscilla here with a little tutorial today, using some of those Globleland dies that I got in the little collaboration that I talked about in the last Globleland video. Words are really hard, sorry. We're making a little terrarium today, and my camera is going to fight me on focus, so I'm going to apologize for that in advance. But right now I'm just cutting out all the cool little mushrooms, the terrarium, not terrarium, well I'm making a terrarium, but it's like a bell jar, a cloche, I think they're called. I cut that out with some vellum and some clear acetate. I cut them both together, mostly because I didn't want the acetate to pick up all the grungy stuff on my, like, what are those called? The acrylic block that you use for cutting. So using the vellum as a buffer kept any imprint from like appearing in the acetate, which worked really well. Plus the dye worked well enough to cut through both without any issues, so that was great. And then I cut out some mushrooms, and now I'm cutting out some leaves, and there's a lot of cutting out of stuff for this project. It became one of the very fiddliest of projects, but it was so worth it, so delightfully worth it. Right now I'm using the crystals that came with the bell jar terrarium set, and also the set of differently shaped, like different shape dies. There was like a diamond and like a rhombus and a hexagon. We had a whole debate about that in the last video. I used the crystals from that pack and then the crystals from the terrarium pack to cut that out of gold paper. And then right now I'm just gonna use some alcohol ink to color up some of these scrap little bits of acrylic. They're not acrylic, they're acetate. All the words are going to be wrong today, so sorry about that, guys. And I'm just going for like a little mystical fantasy sort of vibe. I want it to look magical. And I just have a little bit of rubbing alcohol, 90% rubbing alcohol in a little spray bottle there to help me like spread these colors around, so I don't have to use a bajillion gallons of alcohol ink to cover all these. But it's just like a matter of like spreading it out, layering, getting a couple of different colors on there. Some I want to be just like plain colored, so those take a little bit more like work to get into, and the other ones I'm getting a little bit more experimental with. So I'm thinking we're gonna have some pretty amethyst and some pretty like ametrine, which is like citrine and amethyst grown together. That's why I pulled out the orange to like mix up with the purple. And then we're just gonna have blue crystal. I guess you could say this is like blue fluorite. That's what I'm going with in my brain. I think that's what the vibe is here. It all works really well. So we're just gonna make some fun little crystals. So we're gonna let those dry, and then I'm gonna start piecing together the mushrooms. And I want these mushrooms to be a little bit dimensional, not super dimensional, because I'm gonna cover the whole thing with that acetate on top, so it has to fit inside of it and, you know, close nicely. But I want to piece these mushrooms together. I want them to look a little bit more mushroomy. I end up not using all 3 mushrooms. But it still looks really cool in the end. The effort was worth it. And I'm just using a little distress crayon to add in like some color for the gills, and then I'm going to use this Zig 2-way pen to attach all my pieces down. This pen does all the labor for me this entire project. It did all the work. It's amazing. It allows me to have like some time to put all these little fiddly bits together. And like I said, this project turned out to be really fiddly, but I'm really happy with how it came out. It came out super cute. So right now what I'm doing is separating the tops to add onto the like lighter colored pieces. And then I'm going to color in the gills and have, like, you know, them be just a little bit darker so that there's some separation between the gills and the stems of the mushrooms. And then a fun side effect of this is that I'm using handmade paper for these mushrooms. So it's like a little bit thicker. So, like, I wasn't sure if the dye was going to make it through. It did. But it also just absorbed a bunch of the glue. So my mushrooms ended up with little extra spots, like on top of the spots they already have. And that's actually really cute. I really like how it looks. It gave them a little speckly vibe, a little bit more of a natural look to them than just straight up red. So yeah, I really love that. I'm really loving how those came out. And even like just coloring them up a bit really give these mushrooms a lot of life. So I really like that. And like I said, this was so fiddly, but so worth it. So satisfying to see this come together. Although I do have to find a use for the 3rd mushroom that did not make it into the jar. And then I'm going to use the same pearlescent vellum paper that I used for the back of the jar, for the back of these mushrooms, just to put in their little actual cutout spots. And also to sort of just tie it in together so they're all magical and sparkly looking. And then we're gonna start working on these crystals. This was probably the fiddliest of fiddly bits, guys. I can't stress you how fiddly this was, but it was so worth it. The conclusion is so satisfying, and I really love how it came out. But yeah, I had to go over with that pen on all these little crystal lines because I'm gonna go stick these onto the acetate and have these like stained glass crystals. I didn't make you watch me do all of that though, so because there were quite a few crystals. I ended up with way more than I needed for this project, but I'm working on something else that they'll come in super handy for, so it works out. So yeah, there's me just adding the vellum I was talking about. I don't know why I didn't do this in order. I think I was waiting for stuff to dry, and that's how we ended up here. And then I'm just cutting out the background, which was also very easy to do. But as you can see, my camera fights me on focusing on everything, and it's going to continue to do so. So, we have all our dried little acetate pieces. I forget multiple times that everything is sticky because I prepared it ahead of time. So I ended up sticking all my crystals to the back of that paper and had to pull them all off, which was fine. You have time before this glue like sticks down solidly. But I'm just going to stick the crystals down in the spot that I think look the best. And save the little scraps of acetate later for when I make more crystal cutouts. But for right now, I don't use all of the acetate. So yeah, that's why that's just going to sit on the side and wait. But these are coming out so cool already, and I haven't even cut them out yet. But I'm going to go back and just fussy cut all the little crystals out. So yeah, I did a lot of cutting. The machine did a lot of cutting. There's a lot of cutting. But like I said, absolutely worth it. I'm so stoked. I would make more of these because I still have all the little components left at the end. So it really works out. So once I got all the crystals prepped, the mushrooms prepped, then it came down to sort of eyeballing how I wanted to arrange the jar. And I started out using the biggest leaf first because, of course, they're going to sit in the background. And then I decided that I didn't want them all to be the same color. Like, this is just some dyed green paper that I had in my stash. And I decided I didn't want them to all be the same color. So I ended up going back and inking them all. And I don't remember if I show you that to you guys or if I do that off camera. So we'll see together. It'll be a surprise because I'm actually doing this voiceover a couple of days after I did this project. So we'll see. Oh no, I'm doing it right here while everything else dries. So yeah, I decided to add some layers of green to this to make our terrarium a little more vibrant. This project was a lot of fun though, guys. I like little tiny fiddly projects, so for me this was like right up my alley. If you're not that person, I understand. But having all the stuff like already cut out for you, minus having to go back and cut out, you know, little bits here and there, makes this super easy. And if you're smarter than me, you'll cut your leaves out of different colors of paper and, you know, won't have to go back and re-ink everything. But I like the way that the ink looks. It makes them look a little bit variegated, a little bit more magical in our little magical container of like fairy magic. And this would be a fun way to make a shaker card too. I didn't make this a shaker card because it was already fiddly, so I didn't need to add another step. But a little bit of glitter in there wouldn't hurt. It would absolutely make it just ever so more magical. And I guess I went back and added some yellow too, so that works out cool. So we're just going to start popping everything in here. And then just being mindful of the edge of the jar, because you don't want anything to be touching the edge of the jar, because you're going to go stick the top of the jar back over all of that. And then, what else can I tell you? I had to go through and do all of this gluing for all these leaves. And I don't remember if I showed you guys all of that too. Hopefully not, because it's so tedious, but maybe I did. I don't know how else. I think this would be like a cool dye to use for like making specimens in a jar too. Like a little skull and some moss in there would be pretty cool for like a tag. You could paint the moss onto the background and then add like a skull in the front. That would be really cool. Okay, yeah, so I did pre-glue everything and then cut away so you guys didn't have to watch all of that, which is good. And then I'm just going through and artfully arranging all my leaves in the pattern that I find the most appealing. And then I want to layer stuff in, so I'm going to add one of the mushrooms and add some leaves over that, so it looks like it's all sort of grown around what's in there. I'm going to add some of these crystals, and you can see like through the light how pretty they are. They came out so great, so I'm glad that I have a bunch of like extras to use in my like current journal projects. And it's just a matter of like going through, layering in your leaves, looking for what's appealing, what's not appealing. And then working with different heights, because the jar is really tall and those leaves are not as tall as the jar. So there's a lot of space to fill, and you don't have to fill it all the way to the top. That you don't have to do that either. And I didn't, so And then also good to like be mindful of the fact that the bottom of the jar exists. There's a whole strip that I don't think I showed you guys me cutting out, because I cut it out at a previous time when I was using some more gold paper. But the bottom of the jar there is also going to get covered up too, so the stuff hanging down in there, you're not necessarily going to see. So you don't have to worry about your stems and stuff like that too much. And then I almost made a huge faux pas and forgot that I needed to put the acetate down before I put the base of the jar down. But don't worry, I also forgot that the jar, like the base of the jar, has glue on it. So I put this paper back down on it. Or I put my tag on top of it and then, you know, came to this point. But once the glue on the acetate dries, I'm able to lock everything in place, so now it looks shiny like it is underneath a piece of glass. And I'm able to add the base in. And then I decided to jazz the base up a little bit because I had that leaf left over and some crystals left over. So I was like, alright, let's make this a little bit fancier. And I popped those in there too. Magical. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. The links for all the relevant information are going to be in the description box below, including the dyes I used, the discount code they sent me, the website for Globleland. It's all down there so you can check it out. I hope that you guys enjoyed this little tutorial, and I will catch you guys all in the next one. Until then, happy crafting. Bye.